May 10th, 1972, 13:42 hours. 23,000 feet over North Vietnam, 40 miles northwest of Hanoi. Captain Richard Stephen Ritchie throttles his F-4D Phantom through 540 knots, scanning the sky through a canopy streaked with hydraulic fluid and exhaust residue. His RIO, Radar Intercept Officer, Captain Charles de Bellevue, sits 4 feet behind him, eyes locked on radar scope, showing multiple bogies inbound. Red Crown, the Navy's radar picket ship in the Gulf of Tonkin, has just called out 8 MiG-21s climbing fast from Fukien Airfield. Ritchie's flight, 4 F-4 Phantoms. The enemy, 8 MiG-21s. The Soviet Union's frontline interceptor, already responsible for downing 27 American aircraft. In the next 4 minutes, Ritchie will fire 2 AIM-7 Sparrow missiles. One will malfunction. A 40% failure rate plagued these weapons throughout the war. The other will guide true. This engagement will make Ritchie the first Air Force pilot ace since the Korean War. But for the next 50 years, controversy will shadow every victory. The Navy will claim their pilots deserved the title. Defense analysts will question the confirmation methods. And Ritchie himself will spend decades defending 5 kills that the U.S. military both certified and doubted. By the time Operation Linebacker ends in October 1972, Ritchie will have 5 confirmed MiG-21 kills, more than any other pilot in Vietnam. His backseater, Chuck de Bellevue, will end the war with 6, making him the highest-scoring American aircrew member of the conflict. The question isn't just how Ritchie became America's last fighter ace, it's why, for half a century, his achievement remained buried under classification, inter-service rivalry, and the uncomfortable truth that American technology wasn't winning the air war. American pilots were, barely, and only after learning painful lessons written in the wreckage of 76 lost Phantoms. Richard Stephen Ritchie, born September 25th, 1942, Reidsville, North Carolina. Population, 11,790. Reidsville sits in Rockingham County, tobacco country, where American Tobacco Company's factory employed a third of the town. Ritchie's father worked as a machinist, practical, middle-class America. No family military tradition, no boyhood dreams of aerial combat. Ritchie's path to the cockpit came from something more fundamental: economic opportunity and the draft. 1964. Ritchie graduates from East Carolina University with a degree in education. Vietnam is expanding from advisory mission to full combat deployment. The draft looms. Ritchie makes the calculation thousands of young men made. If military service is inevitable, control how you serve. He applies to Air Force Officer Training School with the specific goal of becoming a pilot. January 1965. Ritchie enters OTS at Lackland Air Force Base, San Antonio, Texas. September 1965. Undergraduate pilot training begins at Laredo Air Force Base, Texas. Ritchie flies the T-37 Tweet and T-38 Talon. His instructors note, technically proficient, methodical in procedures, not a natural stick-and-rudder virtuoso. He compensates with preparation, studies aircraft performance charts, memorizes fuel consumption rates, calculates intercept geometries on paper before flying them. August 1966. Ritchie receives his wings. Total flight hours, 271.3. Fighter lead-in training follows at Luke Air Force Base, Arizona. Here, Ritchie transitions to the F-4C Phantom II, the aircraft he'll fly in combat, though not yet the D-model variant that will become his primary mount. April 1967. First assignment, 433rd Tactical Fighter Squadron, 8th Tactical Fighter Wing, Ubon Royal Thai Air Force Base, Thailand. This is not Ritchie's war yet. His first tour involves ground attack missions over Laos and the southern panhandle of North Vietnam. He flies 195 combat missions, 0 air-to-air engagements. He drops bombs, fires rockets, loses friends to surface-to-air missiles and anti-aircraft artillery. He learns one critical lesson. In Southeast Asia, Training doesn't match reality. April 1968. Richie returns stateside. He's accumulated 1,047 flight hours in the F-4. He becomes an instructor pilot at George Air Force Base, California, passing his hard-learned lessons to the next generation. But the war doesn't end. By 1972, it's expanding. March 1972. Captain Ritchie returns to Southeast Asia. Assignment 555th Tactical Fighter Squadron, Triple Nickel, 432nd Tactical Reconnaissance Wing, Udorn Royal Thai Air Force Base, Thailand. His aircraft, F-4D Phantom II, tail number 667463. The F-4D entered service in 1966 as an improved version of the earlier C model. Key upgrade, APQ-109 radar, with improved look-down capability and better ground clutter rejection. Critical limitation, still no internal cannon. The Air Force believed missiles had made guns obsolete, a theory Vietnam was disproving at a cost of 1.1 American aircraft lost for every MiG shot down through 1968. On paper, the MiG-21 owns the turning fight. Lighter, tighter radius, built-in gun for close combat. The Phantom's advantages exist elsewhere. 2 crew members sharing workload, superior radar for beyond visual range detection, longer range missiles, better high-altitude performance, and one factor not listed in any specification sheet, durability. The F-4 can absorb battle damage and return home. The MiG-21 cannot. But in May 1972, these advantages mean nothing if you can't get into firing position. The North Vietnamese have developed tactics specifically to negate American strengths. They operate under ground-controlled intercept, GCI, vectoring from radar sites that watch every American aircraft cross into North Vietnamese airspace. They climb fast, engage in slashing attacks, and dive away before American flights can bring numbers to bear. They fight near Hanoi, forcing American pilots to operate at medium altitudes where surface-to-air missiles threaten from below and MiGs from above. Ritchie has advantages the spec sheets don't show. He's methodical. He studied every engagement report from the previous 7 years. He knows the Phantom can't turn with a MiG, so he doesn't try. He knows the AIM-7 Sparrow has a 40% failure rate, so he fires in pairs. And he has Captain Charles de Bellevue in the back seat, the best radar intercept officer in Southeast Asia, who will finish the war with 6 kills of his own, all from that back cockpit. The technical disadvantage is real. Overcoming it requires perfect execution, repetition, and accepting that luck plays a larger role than the Air Force wants to admit. 0830 hours. Mission briefing, Udorn Air Base. The target, Yen Bai Railroad Yard, 70 miles northwest of Hanoi. Ritchie's flight, Oyster Flight, 4 F-4Ds loaded for air-to-air. No bombs today. Pure MiG cap. MiG Combat Air Patrol. Intelligence reports MiG-21 activity has increased 300% since Operation Linebacker began 8 days earlier. North Vietnam is committing its fighter force to stop American interdiction of supply lines. 11:47 hours. Oyster Flight crosses the Red River, heading northwest. Altitude, 15,000 feet. Speed, 480 knots. Ritchie flies Oyster 1. Bellevue's radar scans ahead, frequency hopping to avoid North Vietnamese detection. 11:49 hours. Red Crown, Oyster Flight. Blue Bandits, bearing 350, 40 miles, 18,000, closing fast. Blue Bandit, code for MiG-21, 40 miles. 2 minutes to merge at current closure rate of 1,200 knots combined. Ritchie, Oyster copies. Press. Bellevue, contact. 045, 32 miles. Co-altitude, 4 targets. 4 MiG-21s, 4 F-4s. Even numbers, but the MiGs hold the altitude advantage. 18,000 feet against Ritchie's 15,000. In an energy fight, altitude equals options. 11:50 hours. Ritchie initiates a climb to 18,000 feet. Airspeed bleeds from 480 to 420 knots as the Phantom's twin J-79 engines push the 41,500-pound fighter upward at 12,000 feet per minute. He's trading speed for altitude, gambling that he can reach firing position before the MiGs commit. Double view, 20 miles. Lock. I've got a good tone. The APQ-109 radar has locked on to the lead MiG. The AIM-7E Sparrow missile, mounted on the left forward fuselage station, receives radar illumination data through its semi-active seeker. Richie feels the tone in his headset, steady, high-pitched, indicating missile readiness. 11:51 hours. Range, 16 miles. Richie. Fox 1, he squeezes the trigger. The first AIM-7E drops from the rail, its Rocketdyne Mk-58 motor igniting, accelerating the 500-pound missile to Mach 3.5. Time to target, 28 seconds. Richie doesn't wait. He immediately fires the second AIM-7E from the right forward station. Fox 1, de Bellevue maintains radar lock, illuminating the target MiG. The AIM-7 seeker is passive. It sees only reflected radar energy from the F-4's transmitter. Break the lock, and the missile goes ballistic. 28 seconds is an eternity in air combat. The lead MiG doesn't know a missile is inbound. No launch warning receiver, no visual on the Sparrow's thin profile and smokeless motor from head-on. But North Vietnamese GCI does. Radio calls flood the frequency. The MiG flight breaks. The lead MiG pulls hard left, 7 Gs, turning perpendicular to Ritchie's flight path. First Sparrow misses. The secret loses lock as the target exceeds the radar's gimbal limits. The missile flies through empty air and self-destructs at maximum range. Second Sparrow guides true. The MiG-21's turn is too late. The missile impacts the right side of the fuselage, just aft the cockpit. The 66-pound continuous rod warhead detonates, sending a ring of steel rod segments through the MiG's structure. Fuel ignites. The fighter disintegrates. De Bellevue. Good kill! Good kill! Richie sees the fireball at 11 miles. He doesn't celebrate. 3 MiG-21s remain, and they're turning in. 11:52 hours. Richie breaks right, extending east toward the Red River. The F-4's speed advantage, 540 knots to the MiG's 480, as both aircraft maneuver. He's not running. He's resetting, gaining separation to re-engage on his terms. The remaining MiGs don't pursue. North Vietnamese doctrine, engage only when GCI provides favorable position. Without numerical advantage and one flight member down, they dive for home. Oyster flight. 1 kill, 0 losses, 0 damage. Mission time, 4 minutes from first radar contact to splash. 21 days later, Richie has flown 14 additional missions. 0 MiG contacts. The North Vietnamese Air Force has withdrawn from daylight operations after losing 12 fighters in May. May 31st, 1972, 14:25 hours. Richie leads Hondo Flight 4 F-4Ds, escorting a strike package against the Paul Doumer Bridge outside Hanoi. This is the most heavily defended target in Southeast Asia. 16 SAM sites, 547 anti-aircraft guns, and Gia Lam Airfield 4 miles east, with MiG-21s on 5-minute alert. The strike package: 24 F-4s, 12 A-7 Corsairs, 4 EB-66 electronic warfare aircraft, and 2 RF-4C reconnaissance birds. 60 aircraft in a 20-mile-long formation, approaching from the southwest. 14:32 hours. The formation crosses Hoa Binh, 50 miles southwest of Hanoi. Weather: clear skies, visibility 15 miles, temperature 91 degrees Fahrenheit at altitude. Perfect conditions for visual combat. Red Crown, Hondo, multiple blue bandits, Bullseye 345, 22 miles. Bullseye, code name for Hanoi's city center. MiGs are launching from Gia Lam. Richie, Hondo copies. Music on. He activates the ANALQ-87 electronic countermeasures pod, jamming North Vietnamese acquisition radars. 14:34 hours. De Bellevue, contact. 050, 18 miles. Low, 4 targets climbing. The North Vietnamese are using a new tactic, low-altitude approach to avoid radar detection, then a rapid climb to intercept altitude. It's working. Red Crown missed them until they began climbing. Richie pushes the throttles to full military power, maximum thrust without afterburner, and noses down 15 degrees. Speed increases from 480 to 560 knots. The Phantom dives toward the climbing MiGs, converting altitude to speed and position. 1436 hours. Range, 9 miles. De Bellevue achieves radar lock on the lead MiG, but something's wrong. De Bellevue, break right. Bandit, 5 o'clock, 3 miles. A fifth MiG-21, undetected, has approached from the rear quarter. The North Vietnamese have baited the trap. 4 MiGs climb to draw attention, while a fifth stalks from below. Richie breaks hard right, 6.5 Gs. The Phantom weighs 41,500 pounds. At 6.5 Gs, Richie and de Bellevue each experience 1,150 pounds of force pressing them into their seats. Vision grays at the edges. G-induced loss of peripheral vision. Richie strains against the pressure, forcing blood to his brain. The MiG overshoots. Unable to match the Phantom's turn radius at this speed, American jets can't turn with MiGs in sustained combat, but in a high-speed slice, one instantaneous turn, the F-4's massive wing generates enormous lift. 1437 hours. Richie reverses left, rolling inverted and pulling through to reacquire the MiG. The Stalker has become the prey. The MiG-21 attempts to accelerate away, but Richie already has the speed advantage. 580 knots to the MiG's 510. Range, 4.2 miles. Closure rate, 240 knots. Too close for AIM-7 Sparrow. Minimum range is 2 miles. Richie selects AIM-9G Sidewinder, the infrared-guided heat seeker. He hears the growl in his headset. The missile's seeker has locked on to the MiG's tailpipe. 1438 hours. Range, 1.8 miles. Richie, Fox 2. The Sidewinder launches from the left outboard wing pylon. Its 25-pound high-explosive warhead and infrared seeker guide toward the MiG's engine exhaust at Mach 2.5. Time to target, 8 seconds. The MiG pilot sees the launch. The Sidewinder's motor produces a distinctive smoke trail. He brakes left, simultaneously deploying flares and cutting throttle to reduce infrared signature. 1968-era countermeasures. They don't work. The AIM-9G is a newer variant with better seeker discrimination. It ignores the flares and tracks the engine's heat bloom. Impact. Left side of the fuselage between wing root and tail. The warhead detonates. The MiG's aft fuselage separates. The pilot ejects. Richie sees the canopy separate and the ejection seat fire, and the wreckage tumbles toward the jungle below. De Bellevue. Splash. 2-2. Richie has no time to acknowledge. The 4 MiGs he was originally tracking have completed their climb and are now above him, 22,000 feet to his 18,000. They roll in. 1439 hours. Richie, Hondo flight, extend east, full burner. All 4 Phantoms light afterburners. Thrust jumps from 17,900 pounds to 35,800 pounds and accelerate away from the threat. Speed increases rapidly, 580, 600, 640, 680 knots. The MiG-21's maximum speed is 650 knots at this altitude. The Phantoms pull away. The MiGs don't pursue. They're low on fuel after the climb and engagement. They return to Gia-Lam. Hondo flight, 2 kills. Richie's wingman, Captain John Madden, also splashed a MiG with an AIM-7. 0 losses, 1 F-4 with minor battle damage from an SA-2 proximity fuse. Richie's kills, 2 confirmed. 38 days pass. The air war over North Vietnam has intensified. Operation Linebacker. Systematic destruction of North Vietnamese logistics. Every bridge, every rail yard, every storage depot within 50 miles of Hanoi is a target. The North Vietnamese Air Force is desperate. They're losing aircraft faster than Soviet resupply can replace them. July 8, 1972, 09:45 hours. Richie leads Paula flight. 4 F-4Ds configured for MiG-cap over a strike against Baxiang Rail Yard, 35 miles northeast of Hanoi. Weather, monsoon conditions, cloud deck at 8,000 feet, scattered storms, visibility variable from 2 miles to 10, 09:58 hours. Paula flight orbits at 18,000 feet above the clouds. The strike package, 16 F-4s loaded with Mk-82 500-pound bombs descends through the cloud deck to attack. Richie remains on top, waiting. Red Crown. Paula, Blue Bandits Bullseye 020, 15 miles, medium altitude, fast movers. Fast movers. Aircraft exceeding 500 knots. These MiGs are not climbing to intercept. They're already at altitude, racing toward the strike package. 1,000 hours. Richie, Paula flight, come starboard, 020, extend. He's positioning between the MiGs and the strike force. Classic barrier combat air patrol. Del Bellevue, contact, 355, 12 miles, 20,000, 2 targets. Only 2 MiGs. Richie smells a trap. The North Vietnamese frequently use small formations as bait while larger groups maneuver for position, but he has no choice. His mission is to protect the strike package. 1,001 hours. Richie accelerates to 520 knots, climbing to 21,000 feet. Paula 2 and 3 follow in combat spread. Line abreast formation, 2 miles between aircraft. Paula 4 remains high, 25,000 feet, watching for additional threats. Range, 8 miles. Del Bellevue locks the lead MiG, but Red Crown interrupts. Paula, additional bandits, Bullseye 015, 12 miles, low altitude, fast movers. The trap, 4 more MiGs, climbing from below. Paula flight is caught between 2 groups. Richie makes an instantaneous decision. The 2 high MiGs are the immediate threat to the strike package. He commits forward. 1,002 hours. Range, 5 miles. Richie says, Fox 1, Fox 1. 2 AIM-7E Sparrows ripple from the fuselage stations. Launch interval, 2 seconds. De Bellevue holds the radar lock as both missiles track toward the lead MiG. Time to target, 22 seconds. The MiGs see the launches. Someone in their formation calls out the Sparrows. Both MiGs break hard left, diving toward the cloud deck. First Sparrow, motor failure. The missile flies straight for 8 seconds, then tumbles. Another victim of the Sparrow's 40% failure rate. Second Sparrow, guides true. The lead MiG's dive is steep, 45 degrees, accelerating through 600 knots. But the Sparrow is faster. At 3/4 of a mile, the MiG pilot violently reverses his turn, right instead of left, trying to break the missile's track. Too late. The Sparrow's seeker tracks through the turn. Impact, right wing root. The continuous rod warhead severs the wing. The MiG enters an uncontrollable roll and plunges into the clouds at 8,000 feet. Richie doesn't see the final impact, but the explosion's flash illuminates the cloud deck from within. De Bellevue says, "Kill! Kill! Good kill." 1,003 hours. But now the 4 MiGs climbing from below are at Paula flight's altitude, 21,000 feet, and turning in. Range, 6 miles. Closing at 1,100 knots combined. Richie says, "Paula flight, defensive split, on my call. 3, 2, 1, break." The 4 Phantoms split. 2 breaks left. 3 right. 4 extends high. Richie breaks right with 3. The tactical principle: force the attackers to commit to one element, allowing the other to re-engage. The MiGs commit to Richie and 3. A mistake. Paula 2, now behind the MiG formation, fires an AIM-7 from 7 miles. The Sparrow tracks and splashes 1 MiG. 1,004 hours. 3 MiGs remain, but they're now defensive, aware that American fighters are behind them. They extend east, diving for the sanctuary of Kep Airfield's SAM umbrella. Richie doesn't pursue. He's low on fuel. 12 minutes to bingo, the point where he must depart for Udorn or risk running dry. Paula flight, 2 kills, 0 losses. The strike package completes the attack and returns unmolested. Richie's kills, 3 confirmed. 51 days pass. Richie flies 23 missions. The North Vietnamese Air Force has largely withdrawn. American intelligence estimates only 40 operational MiG-21s remain, down from 90 in May. They sortie only when weather or tactical conditions heavily favor them. August 28, 1972, 15:12 hours. Ritchie leads Biloxi flight, 4 F-4Ds, escorting a reconnaissance mission over Yen Bai Airfield. The RF-4C F-4C Phantom reconnaissance bird will photograph recent construction. Intelligence suspects the North Vietnamese are building new, hardened aircraft shelters. Weather: partly cloudy, scattered cumulus at 12,000 feet, excellent visibility. 15:23 hours. The RF-4C completes its photo run and exits north. Biloxi flight follows, maintaining position 3 miles behind and 5,000 feet above, 18,000 feet altitude, 460 knots. Red Crown. Biloxi. Blue Bandits, Bullseye 320, 25 miles low altitude. MiGs are launching from Phuoc Yen, the main North Vietnamese fighter base northwest of Hanoi. But 25 miles is extreme range. If the MiGs are truly low altitude, they'll have to climb, burning fuel and energy. Ritchie suspects they're not coming for Biloxi flight. They're heading somewhere else. Double of view. No radar contact. They're below the clutter. Terrain masking, flying below 2,000 feet, using ground return to hide from American radars. 15:25 hours. Red Crown. Biloxi. Bandits now Bullseye 315, 18 miles. Contact lost. The MiGs have disappeared from Red Crown's radar. Either they've landed or they're extremely low. Richie. Biloxi. Descend to 10,000. Spread out. Let's get eyeballs. Biloxi flight descends. At 10,000 feet, visibility is 20 miles. Richie scans the horizon, looking for smoke trails, glint from canopies, anything. 15:27 hours. Biloxi 3. Contact. Bandits, 11 o'clock low, 8 miles. 2 aircraft, look like 21s. Richie looks left and down. There. 2 dark specks against the green jungle canopy, perhaps 2,000 feet above ground level, heading northwest. The geometry is poor. Richie is 8,000 feet above them, 8 miles away, traveling roughly parallel courses. To engage, he must descend, turn toward them, and accelerate, all while they can extend away at low altitude. But he has one advantage. They haven't seen Biloxi flight. They're focused on their mission, probably intercepting a different American formation.
Richie, Biloxi flight, burners. Extend ahead, then we'll come back down on them. 15:28 hours. All 4 Phantoms engage afterburner and accelerate to 580 knots, flying ahead of the MiG's flight path. After 1 minute, Richie leads a hard left turn, rolling out on a reciprocal heading, now pointing back toward the MiGs. The Bellevue. Contact 12 o'clock. 6 miles, still low. The MiGs are head-on. Closure rate, 1,200 knots combined. Time to merge, 18 seconds. Richie descends to 4,000 feet, preparing to engage, but the geometry is wrong for an AIM-7 shot. The radar can't differentiate the low-altitude targets from ground clutter. 15:29 hours. Range, 3 miles. The MiGs see the Phantoms. They brake hard. 1 left, 1 right, then pull up into vertical climbs, attempting to use their superior thrust-to-weight ratio to escape. Richie follows the right-hand MiG. He pulls the nose up, 5 Gs, tracking the MiG's climb. The Phantom speed, 560 knots. The MiG, 480 knots. Closure rate decreases as both aircraft decelerate in the climb. Altitude increases rapidly, 6,000, 8,000, 10,000 feet. The MiG-21's climb rate is superior, 36,090 feet per minute versus the Phantom's 41,300 at sea level. But the Phantom has more energy entering the fight. Richie is catching up. 15:30 hours. Altitude, 14,000 feet. Both aircraft are decelerating. Richie's airspeed, 380 knots. The MiG, 340 knots. Range, 1.2 miles. Too close for AIM-7. Richie selects AIM-9G Sidewinder. The seeker growls. Solid lock on the MiG's tailpipe, fully illuminated by afterburner. Richie, Fox 2. The Sidewinder launches. Time to target, 5 seconds. The MiG pilot, low on energy and altitude, has no options. He can't turn. Airspeed is too low. He can't extend. The Sidewinder is faster. He attempts a roll, inverted, pulling through to dive away. The Sidewinder doesn't care. It tracks through the roll. Impact, Engine section. The MiG's R-11 F-2S 300 turbojet disintegrates. Fire blooms. The aircraft tumbles. The pilot ejects at 13,000 feet. Richie sees the parachute deploy. De Bellevue, good kill. That's 4. Biloxi 2 engages the second MiG and splashes it with an AIM-7 at high altitude. Biloxi flight, 2 kills, 0 losses. Ritchie's kills are 4 confirmed, 1 more, and he becomes America's first fighter ace since the Korean War.
October 13th, 1972. 11:47 hours. Operation Linebacker is winding down. Peace negotiations in Paris are progressing. The air war has decreased in intensity. Fewer strikes, fewer MiG intercepts. The North Vietnamese Air Force, reduced to fewer than 30 operational MiG-21s, sorties only sporadically. Ritchie leads Balter flight, 4 F-4Ds, on MiG cap over a strike against petroleum storage at Tai Nguyen, 40 miles north of Hanoi. This is his 98th combat mission of his second tour. Tension fills the cockpit. He's been stuck at 4 kills for 46 days. Every mission without contact feels like an opportunity lost. 11:58 hours. The strike package, 12 F-4s, rolls in on the target. Explosions ripple across the storage tanks. Black smoke rises to 15,000 feet. Red Crown, Balter, Blue Bandits, Bullseye, 035, 20 miles medium altitude. Finally, MiGs are launching from Kep Airfield. Richie, Balter copies. De Bellevue, contact 040, 17 miles, 18,000, single target, 1 MiG, Lone Wolf Tactics. North Vietnamese pilots, desperate and low on aircraft, sometimes sortie individually, hoping to catch American flights distracted during egress. 11:59 hours. Richie turns toward the contact. Altitude, 19,000 feet. Speed, 500 knots. He's higher and faster than the MiG. Advantage? American. Range, 12 miles. De Bellevue achieves radar lock, but Richie hesitates. He's studied every engagement. He knows the North Vietnamese sometimes use single aircraft as bait. He scans the sky, looking for additional threats.
De Bellevue, still single contact, no others. Red Crown confirms. Balter, single bandit, your 040, 12 miles. Richie commits. He accelerates to 540 knots, maintaining altitude. The MiG, below him, doesn't see the Phantom against the bright sky. 1200 hours. Range 8 miles. Richie commits. Fox 1. 2 AIM-7E Sparrows launch. De Bellevue maintains lock. Time to target, 31 seconds. The MiG continues straight and level. No break, no reaction. Possible the pilot hasn't been warned by GCI. Perhaps North Vietnamese radar is jammed by EB-66 electronic warfare aircraft orbiting nearby. 20 seconds to impact. The MiG begins a gentle turn left, not defensive, navigational. He's still unaware. 10 seconds. The first Sparrow, motor failure. It flies straight for 12 seconds, then tumbles. 5 seconds. The second Sparrow, tracking true. 3 seconds. The MiG pilot sees it. He brakes hard left, 7 Gs, trying to force an overshoot. Too late. The Sparrow impacts the left side of the fuselage just forward of the tail. The continuous rod warhead cuts through the aft section. The MiG's tail separates. The fuselage tumbles. No ejection. The wreckage impacts the jungle below. De Bellevue, kill! Kill! That's 5. You're an ace. 12:01 hours. Balter flight extends east, exiting North Vietnamese airspace. Richie says nothing. He's reviewing the engagement in his mind, already anticipating the debriefing, the confirmation process, the skepticism. He's right to be cautious. The battle over whether he's truly an ace is just beginning.
13:42 hours. Balter flight lands at Udorn Air Base. Ritchie's F-4D, tail number 667463, shows no battle damage. Total mission time, 2 hours, 17 minutes. Debriefing begins at 1400 hours. Present, Ritchie, De Bellevue, intelligence officers, and Commander 432nd Tactical Reconnaissance Wing. The process is methodical. Review radar tapes from de Bellevue's scope, review gun camera footage. Limited, the engagement occurred at 8 miles, beyond clear visual documentation. Cross-reference Red Crown radar tracks, interview other aircrew in the strike package. The conclusion? Confirmed kill. MiG-21, destroyed by IAM-7E Sparrow, October 13, 1972, 1200 hours. Ritchie's total? 5 confirmed MiG-21 kills. The number matters. 5 makes him an ace, the first Air Force pilot to achieve that status since Captain Joseph McConnell in Korea, 1953. But confirmation is one thing, recognition is another. October 15th, 1972. The Air Force issues a press release. Captain Richard S. Ritchie becomes the first Air Force ace of the Vietnam War. The statement is carefully worded. It does not say first American ace, because the Navy disputes this. Commander Randy Cunningham and his RIO, Lieutenant J.G. Willie Driscoll, achieved 5 kills on May 10, 1972, the same day as Ritchie's first kill, but earlier in the day. Cunningham, 3 MiG-17s and 2 MiG-21s. The Navy argues Cunningham earned the title first. The inter-service rivalry obscures a more fundamental issue, the confirmation process itself. Throughout Vietnam, kill confirmation requires one of 3 criteria: gun camera footage showing the enemy aircraft destroyed, visual confirmation by a second aircrew, or enemy acknowledgement through captured documents or radio intercepts. For long-range missile kills, IAM-7 Sparrows fired at 6 to 8 miles, gun camera footage rarely shows the actual destruction. Visual confirmation from other aircraft is difficult when flights are separated by miles of sky. 4 of Ritchie's 5 kills occurred at ranges beyond clear visual documentation. All 5 relied heavily on radar data and circumstantial evidence. Aircraft disappearing from radar, explosions observed but not clearly photographed, battle damage assessment from post-strike reconnaissance. The North Vietnamese do not help. They rarely acknowledge losses, and when they do, numbers don't match American claim. U.S. intelligence estimates that for every confirmed American air-to-air kill, there were 1.3 additional unconfirmed probable kills that likely resulted in aircraft destroyed or damaged beyond repair. Ritchie never receives the Medal of Honor. He receives the Air Force Cross, one step below, on November 3, 1972. The citation emphasizes his extraordinary heroism and outstanding airmanship. It does not mention the word ace. His career continues. He remains in Southeast Asia until December 1972, flying 112 additional missions with 0 additional MiG contact. The North Vietnamese Air Force has been effectively neutralized, down to fewer than 20 operational fighters. January 1973, Ritchie returns stateside. Assignment: Instructor Pilot, Fighter Weapons School, Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada. He spends the next 6 years teaching the next generation of fighter pilots the lessons written in blood over North Vietnam. Speed is life, altitude is insurance, and technology without training is a liability. He retires from the Air Force in 1999 as a brigadier general. Total flight hours, over 4,000. Combat missions, 339. De Bellevue, his backseater for all 5 kills, finishes the war with 6 aerial victories, making him the highest-scoring American aircrew member of Vietnam. He remains largely unknown outside military aviation circles. The pilot receives the glory. The RIO receives a footnote. The classification issue: minimal. Unlike reconnaissance missions or close-call nuclear incidents, air-to-air combat over North Vietnam was never highly classified. The missions were publicly acknowledged. The controversy wasn't secrecy, it was skepticism.
The skepticism persists for decades. Not about whether Ritchie shot down 5 MiGs, but whether those kills make him an ace. 1985, the Air Force Historian's Office reviews all Vietnam air-to-air kills. They confirm Ritchie's 5, Cunningham's 5, and identify several other pilots with 4 kills who might deserve reconsideration. The report concludes, confirmation standards were inconsistent. Inter-service rivalry contaminated the process, and political pressure to show success in Vietnam led to both overclaiming and underclaiming, depending on the year. 1990s. The Soviet Union collapses. Archives open. Researchers gain access to North Vietnamese Air Force records, including loss reports and pilot logbooks. The Vietnamese records are incomplete. Many documents were destroyed during the war, others lost to poor archiving, but they provide some verification. Vietnamese records confirm North Vietnam lost 193 aircraft to American fighters during the war. American records claim 195. The correlation is remarkably close, suggesting that overall, American kill claims were accurate. Ritchie's specific claims? Vietnamese records confirm losses consistent with 3 of his 5 kills. Dates, locations, and aircraft types match. The other 2 remain unconfirmed in Vietnamese archives, but the archives are incomplete. Absence of documentation is not evidence of false claims.
2003, Ritchie publishes a memoir, though it remains low profile. He's uncomfortable with celebrity. He emphasizes his crew, especially de Bellevue, and the maintainers, who kept the F-4s flying despite 40% failure rates in missiles and chronic hydraulic issues. 2012, the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum acquires an F-4D Phantom II, tail number 667690, from the same squadron Ritchie flew with. It's not his specific aircraft, but it's configured identically. The museum displays it with a plaque mentioning Ritchie's achievements. The Enemy's Memorial. There is no specific memorial to the North Vietnamese pilots Ritchie shot down. Vietnamese culture emphasizes collective sacrifice over individual heroism. The Vietnam People's Air Force Museum in Hanoi displays wreckage from American aircraft, but rarely names the pilots who shot them down, and never names those who were shot down. Current status. As of 2025, Richard Stephen Ritchie is 83 years old, living in Colorado. He rarely gives interviews. When he does, he focuses on lessons learned, not personal glory. He emphasizes that the ace title is less important than the fact that he and his squadron mates returned home. De Bellevue, retired as a colonel, resides in Florida. He has spoken publicly about the arbitrary distinction between pilot and RIO. Both flew the missions, both earned the kills, but only pilots receive the ace designation. The physical aircraft. F-4D, tail number 667463, Ritchie's mount for 4 of 5 kills, was damaged beyond repair in a 1974 accident unrelated to combat. It was scrapped. No preserved components remain.
The lessons from Ritchie's kills are studied at the U.S. Air Force Fighter Weapons School to this day. They are not lessons about individual heroism or superior technology. They are lessons about process. Lesson 1. Preparation compensates for disadvantage. Ritchie studied every engagement report, memorized enemy tactics, and never entered combat without a plan. He survived because he outthought opponents, not outflew them. Lesson 2. Crew coordination determines outcomes. Ritchie and de Bellevue functioned as a single decision-making entity. De Bellevue managed radar and situational awareness. Ritchie executed tactics. Neither could succeed without the other. Modern fighter aviation still uses this model. Lesson 3. Technology is a tool, not a solution. The AIM-7 Sparrow had a 40% failure rate. The F-4 Phantom had no gun. American pilots won not because their equipment was superior, but because they adapted tactics to compensate for technological limitations. Lesson 4. Confirmation matters. The Vietnam War produced overclaiming, underclaiming, and disputed victories because the confirmation process was inadequate. Modern air combat uses multiple sensor fusion, radar, infrared, visual, and data link to eliminate ambiguity. In 2000, Ritchie was interviewed for an Air Force oral history project. The interviewer asked, "What do you want people to remember about your service?" Ritchie's answer, that we did the job with what we had. The airplane wasn't perfect, the missiles weren't perfect, the tactics were still evolving, but we showed up every day, flew the missions, and brought each other home when we could. That's the job. No rhetoric, no drama, just the methodical professionalism that defined his career.
Richard Stephen Ritchie remains the last Air Force fighter pilot ace. 53 years have passed since his final kill. No conflict since Vietnam has produced the prolonged, intensive air-to-air combat necessary for a pilot to achieve 5 victories. Modern warfare emphasizes standoff weapons, stealth, and network-centric operations. The era of the fighter ace may have ended with Ritchie. Whether that's progress or loss depends on your perspective. What's certain is that the title, Ace, carries weight because of men like Ritchie, who earned it under fire, against odds, with imperfect tools and perfect discipline. If you found this story valuable, consider subscribing. The algorithm promotes content based on engagement, and sharing these lesser-known accounts ensures they're preserved for the next generation. There are hundreds of similar stories, classified, forgotten, or simply untold, waiting to be documented before the participants are gone. Next episode, Colonel Robin Olds and Operation Bolo, the deception that lured 40 MiGs into a carefully planned ambush over North Vietnam.